How are we going, everybody? It's a beautiful day after the bad weather. We had the big storm and the high winds yesterday. I cleaned up a little bit in the garden and I'm just having a look around. Plants are doing mighty fine considering. A bit of weeding to be done as well, especially the potatoes. And just quickly on the potatoes, you can see a lot of weed growing in there. I'm going to clean all that up. But the fact that the potatoes a few weeks ago got hit by heavy frosts are starting to show their wonderful foliage again. So they've bounced back up with a vengeance and hopefully they do well. That needs to be weeded and top dressed with compost and mulch. But more importantly, the big malakas. Now, I've got a couple of hundred here, another 100 sown. We've got another. Now, this isn't because they're ready, why I'm announcing it. In Dandenong North, we've got another 800 growing there for us, for the people who can't travel to Lethbridge to grab their big malacca tomatoes. So, on that note, they're not ready, even though some of you have turned up already and buying them quite small. We are going to launch them soon, once they're ready, but what we've got to do here is pot them on. And this is the same principle for all vegetables. When you're growing them in small containers or boxes or polystyrene may it be, or even seedling trays, if they're grown together, and in my case they're singly grown, but when it comes to growing them on, they need to be transplanted into larger pots. Not a large pot like a 6-inch, but a 4-inch or 3-inch pot. So the basics. This is a 198 cell tray. And you can see it's quite deep, it's quite a firm unit. This isn't available. I've just got a few of these from the plugs that we used to supply and may do it again sometime soon. These need to be transplanted, even though at this size they're not quite ready yet, and I want to show you what I mean by that. Even though you can transplant them, I wouldn't do so as yet. This is probably as big as I would go. Okay, what is that? It's a 4-inch pot. Well, thereabouts. I think that's a 3-inch pot. Yep, so that's about a 4-inch, maybe a little bit larger. But that's about the size you want to go, or you can go in a 3-inch pot like this. You can even use, so if you've got some old seedling maxi pots, that's what we call these. These are for the single plants. You can even use one of these. That's a 100 square pot. Not quite square, but it's about the size. And if I line them up there, you'll get an idea what they look like by comparison. So that's about the size I'd go, and I know some of you even go larger. You might even go into an 8-inch pot, but it's way too early for that. The reason it's too early is that the root system hasn't quite developed enough, or isn't large enough, to sit in a large body of soil like that. And if you're using a heavy mix, if it's not our planting mix and cocoa fibre, and you're using something else that's a little bit heavy, it can be a potty mix in fact, it may retain too much moisture and cause it to rot out. So that's why we recommend a smaller pot. These were a gift to me. I've got 3 little pots here. There's no name on these, but I have, I don't know what that means, B. But anyway, I've got the details of this. Wait a second. He's sitting it in here. Sorry, my bad. That's one thing also. That was sitting in there, and that's acting like a saucer, no holes. And as I picked it up, I thought, geez, that's heavy. There are holes on this one here for drainage, so these are holding a lot of moisture there, folks. That's what I mean. So make sure it does drain well. And if you're using, I'm not going to put that in there anymore. So make sure they drain, they've got airflow. Now, understanding when they're ready to transplant. We've got our juvenile leaves, and we've started to kick on our other leaves, the larger leaves, which are your normal tomato leaves that you're quite accustomed to seeing. For these to be ready, and I mentioned it yesterday, and I watched the footage, and I noticed it was quite dark to see underneath, but we can see now with a bit of sunlight. You need to see some roots coming through the bottom of these. Now, they haven't really kicked through. Yesterday we did have one. I think that's one just there. See that there? That's a tiny root. There's only one root hair coming through. No, that's not one there. So that's really the only one at the moment. So they're not ready to transplant. You need to see them coming through. You don't want them hanging out like long hair and becoming quite loose and exposed to the sunlight, because direct sunlight will dry out that root, kill it off, and any microbes or exudate that the root tries to do will die off as well. So the root will become useless. What did I do? Now, with plugs, they've all got a hole underneath. This is a little bit thin. Normally I use a pen or something thicker to push through. I'm just going to pick one random one, and hopefully I can push it through without disturbing the plant too much. See how it's starting to wobble? There we are. Now, avoid pulling it up from the seedling, because at this stage it's still very delicate. At this age, any sort of plant at this age still, if the roots haven't really come through and thickened up, try and grab it, and just bear with me for a second. let me show you this. So the soil's broken away because the roots haven't grabbed hold of it yet at the bottom. So the rest of it's still sitting in there, and that's what I mean that it hasn't grown through yet. So that was starting to develop around the base. That needs to establish itself. Yes, you can transplant this if you want to, if you're really desperate, but there is no need to at this stage. You need this to cover the entire area, almost the entire area, with its fibrous roots there. And when you do transplant them, folks, what you can do, especially with tomatoes, because they will develop new roots wherever the soil touches the stem. So you've got a root system that starts from here down. If you want a bigger and stronger and healthier root, when you transplant, bury it up to about there, almost half the stem, if not half the stem. Cover that with soil, and you'll watch new roots will emerge from that area of the stem, giving you twice the root coverage, which means twice the minerals release and uptake, providing you're using organic mediums like our planting mix. If you use any potting mix that has added synthetic fertilizers, and I'm talking about added nitrogen, added potash, added phosphates, which is synthetically based, they will disconnect your plants from the microbiome in the soil, the microbial life that exists within the mix that you're growing them in. Our planting mix is by far one of the best ones, and I might be a little bit biased and say it is the best one because I love it, and we've done our trials, and you're going to see the results later on. So tomatoes, you can sow now. I'm sowing more tomatoes. These are the big malakas. We're going to have at least 1,000, or if not more, actually 1,500 of those individual plants made available in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for those. And if you're looking for planting mix or any other product that we have on our website, there are a heap of stockists from our stockist page you can see across Australia, not just Victoria, across Australia, but in particular with the planting mix. Go to that planting mix page, the product page itself. Look up for your nearest stockist. We've got one in the north, or two in the north, one in the west, and one in the eastern suburbs as well, carrying it. And we'll make it available as far and wide as we can, the more suppliers come on board or stockers come on board. In the meantime, you can check out our website, and if you just watch this as it was uploaded, tune into 693 AM dial, that's 3AW radio on Weekend Gardening with Darren James and myself, talking gardening and a lot of other things. Give us a call with your great gardening ideas, and maybe you've got a problem that we can try and solve for you. Otherwise, enjoy your weekend and take advantage of the sales on our website, vasilisgarden.com. From me, Vasily, Maresi.